We who think wine is a food love to find sleepers that punch well above their weight and can pair with most anything. An unsung hero are the Moscatos. Moscato d'Asti is the classic example, the slightly fizzy, gently sweet, aromatic examples from Piedmont. And this wine is very much like that because it's made by a family from Piedmont. Castiglione Tinella is the area they farm, but it's the Brangeros. And in 1998, they ended up planting many vineyards in Pavia. Pavia in the southeast corner of Lombardy. Lombardy, as you might know, is named for the Longobards, the Longbeards, which were a German tribe that came down and swept into Italy centuries ago and settled. In this case, the wine is very similar to Moscato d'Asti because the Brangeros farm in Piedmont. The wine is made in Piedmont to the same specifications. It's just that the fruit was planted to the sandy clay of Pavia. It's named Centorri because of the 100 towers, the cento torri, for which Pavia is famous and why tourists flock to it to photograph them. It, most excitingly, is a wine for the table. It is a wine that finishes off at only 6.5% alcohol, which means it can be paired with almost anything, and it won't knock you into a nap at brunch or even breakfast. And it has all the earmarks to pair well with breakfast foods and brunch foods, because it has enough sweetness to stand up to syrups and glazes, but it also has enough acidity to cut through, the bacon and the pork belly and all the richer elements, the sausage elements. I love it with desserts because it's gently sweet without going syrupy or cloyingly sweet, and the effervescence just kind of makes it more refreshing. And because by the time I reach dessert, oftentimes I've had enough wine with dinner that I don't need a full-bore dessert wine, and 6.5% sits nicely. It's made by an all-women winemaking team, which is a bit of a family affair. The Brangero's enologist is the daughter, Eleonora. Her mother, Emiliana, also helps, and her grandmother, Camilla, is also involved in the winemaking. It's made by taking Moscato Bianco that is freshly pressed into stainless steel tanks that are chilled, and the tank is designed so that it can do batonnage at cool temperatures. Batonnage is that method where you stir the yeast cells as they're fermenting the grape juice into wine, and it can do many things, but in this case, it's keeping the yeast active and in contact with fresh sugars to ensure that they don't settle and get tangy or autolytic the way you might find in champagne, which we like in champagne. But in this case, you want a wine that's more primary. And by that I mean smelling of fresh fruit, tasting of fresh fruit, aromatically floral. And then once this ferments to maybe 6.5% alcohol, they gently pass this wine that has gotten a little effervescence from the yeasts working on the sugars because it releases CO2 during that. Anyway, they pass through a stone filter with ports so small that the yeast are left behind, but the effervescence is allowed through. And in the end, you get a wine that has a sweetness to it because the yeast can't ferment that sugar anymore. And an effervescence that balances that sweetness, and a refreshing acidity that prevents it from being cloying. It's a phenomenal wine. And it's also declassified Moscato d'Asti in part, chiefly Moscato di Pavia, that were planted to the sandy clay in 1998, so many years ago, and now ripe to give good yields, but of concentration and aromatic complexity. It's a delight. So, should you see this on a menu or find it in a bottle shop, don't hesitate. It's a delicious wine that can go with most anything. And if you're having a fish fry and anyone among your party is a sweet tooth, this is the wine to buy. Enjoy.